welcome to the Infinity Bros podcast, the only podcast that's perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Back from a 2-week hiatus, I am your host, Max Mosier. Grateful you're here wherever you're listening, however you're listening. Thanks for making us part of your podcast experience. I'm here today with one other Infinity Bro today to talk about the Black Widow movie. It's Infinity Bro Isaac. Isaac, how you doing?
I am doing great. It is great to be back. Man, it has been a long time for me specifically. I think I'm trying to remember the last episode I've been on. I don't think I've been on since Loki started. So it's been a hot minute. And I am excited to talk about Black Widow with you.
Did you have great July 4th plans?
Oh yeah. We had great July 4th plans. I got together with some good friends, some that I haven't seen for a really long time. So it was a lot of fun.
That's so weird. I'm pretty sure I was there too, actually. It's kind of weird how that works.
It was weird. Yeah. Oh, you were there, weren't you? Oh my gosh.
That's
wow.
so weird how that works out.
That's crazy.
You were there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, I don't know if I would constitute on paper having like 14 kids under the age of 5 in one vicinity as a fun time, but
it actually went really well. Yeah, surprisingly.
All things considered, it went well.
Yeah. When you look at it on paper, the numbers are wild. I think we had like it was like 26 people there, and yeah, like 14 kids maybe or something like that. Just wild amount of people and kids there. But it was a blast.
And of course, my son, who in our house infamously goes to bed at 7 p.m. and won't get up till 7 to today. He didn't get up till 8:15.
Mm-hmm.
This kid sleeps like a rock, 10 to 13 hours minimum a night. First night we're there, after I was being braggadocious about it, because everybody else's kids are up at like 9, and I'm like, well, my kid's been asleep for 2 hours. He looks at me dead in the middle of the night, stone cold eyes, pupils as big as saucers, and just looks at me and goes, "Daddy." And I wanted to just Bart Simpson his little neck. I just couldn't believe that he was up on July 3rd.
That was funny. Yeah, I definitely did not expect you to be up with Tim when I got up that morning, but there you were.
Yeah, I had to drive. We were up in Mille Lacs, Minnesota. Closest city to get coffee is Malacca, home of Heggie's Pizza. And if you're sitting to yourself listening to this going like, what the heck's a Heggie's Pizza? That says all you need to know about Malacca, because that's all it's known for.
True.
And I'm driving there to this Hodunk coffee shop and getting coffee from a lady who looks like she doesn't know how to make coffee. It was something else.
Oh, boy.
July 4th was awesome.
It was a great weekend, though. Man, we had so much fun. And we confirmed that Jarrett is indeed a real person.
He is a real person, and you took some stellar pictures. So you got to make sure, if you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, all those platforms, check out some of these pictures. Isaac did a great job of making these bro tanks.
There may be some leaks on some social media profiles, so definitely go check those out. But I will be posting them as I kind of get some edited and some work done and stuff like that. So
I'm not trying to say that you need to buy these bro tanks that we made. Ooh. I am implying for the brand, it would be a great investment.
For the brand, for sure. Yeah. These bro tanks are legit. And not only do we have bro tanks now, but we also have hats, embroidered hats that look fantastic. Check out theinfinityrose.com, our store. And man, very soon we will have those up on the store. I have the model pics for the tanks for sure, because we took lots and lots of pictures that weekend, but we will get some up for the hats as well.
Even if you don't want to buy the stuff, just go check out the model pictures. It's worth your time just for the model pictures, I think.
Exactly. And you'll see some beautiful pictures of Zane up there. You'll see some beautiful pictures of. I'm trying to think who I'm gonna put on the store next, but we'll figure it out. Maybe I'll put a picture of everybody up on the store for the tanks. I don't know. We got. You're
not gonna hear many podcasts or conglomerates tell you, "Don't worry about buying our stuff. Just go look at the pictures." I think that's our podcast.
True. Yeah. Definitely check out the pics. They're gonna be fire for sure.
But you didn't come here for bro tanks and subpar t-shirts. You came here for some Black Widow talk. We understand that. We're going to break down Black Widow top to bottom here. This will be a spoiler review of this movie. We won't do a non-spoiler review because it's been out for a couple days and you can check it out on Disney+. So we're going to treat this kind of like Loki and not do that as well. I want to talk about some of the trivia for Black Widow. This was announced on July 6, 2020, that Kevin Feige and everybody was so impressed with Florence Pugh's performance as Yelena Belova that they actually are moving to include her into the MCU. We'll talk more about that, but that was just crazy to hear that. This is Scarlett Johansson's 9th time playing Natasha Romanoff. The film is set after Captain America: Civil War. Scarlett Johansson describes the film as its own genre and even named Logan, The Fugitive, and Terminator 2: Judgment Day as influences to the movie. This is the first movie technically of Phase 4 of the MCU. And Emma Watson, Saoirse Ronan, Alice Englert, Dar Zazovsky, and Florence Pugh were considered for the role of Yelena, with Watson being the frontrunner initially, but Pugh was cast, ironically, beating her out, and a couple of those actors were in Little Women as well. Scarlett Johansson asked her husband, Colin Jost, who's a big Marvel Universe fan, to rehearse lines with her husband, but he refused because he didn't want to avoid any spoilers. Isaac, if you were married to a Marvel actress, hypothetically, we'll say your wife Holly gets a part in the Marvel Universe, would you want to know spoilers about her character?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely I would. Okay, second, just pause for a second though. The strangest thing about Scarlett Johansson is that she's married to Colin Jost. Like, that blows my mind. Like, when you think about that, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, Colin Jost, like, okay, he's a funny guy, but when you think of, like, celebrity couples, you think of really good-looking people, right? And you would argue that Colin Jost is... He's not the most good-looking guy. He's not ugly. He's not ugly. I will say that.
Isaac, I'm going to be real with you. I think right now you're putting your foot down and calling him ugly. I think to pause our whole rhythm of trivia about this movie, to basically spend a minute to 90 seconds blasting Colin Jost like this.
It's just wild to me. Like, whenever I get reminded that Colin Jost is married to Scarlett Johansson, I'm like, whoa, like, how did that even happen? I really want to know the story behind that, because that just seems like a couple it's an odd couple to me for some reason. So
I believe we will be clipping this and using it on TikTok and doing one of those things where just every day posting this clip until Colin Jost talks to us.
Yeah, why not?
Because that poor guy does not deserve that.
I love Colin Jost and he's hilarious, but yes, it seems like an odd pairing to me.
If you're listening right now and you think Colin Jost is attractive, shoot us an email at theinfinitybrospodcast@gmail.com. This is the 24th.
Why don't you go ahead and rate his attractiveness on a 6-point scale?
Time out. No. Hold on. All right. Now we definitely have to pause. Here we go, Isaac. Okay. I want you to rate his attractiveness on a scale of 1 to 6. You started this.
Let's see. On a 6-point scale, I think I would rate him a 3.5 out of 6. Not ugly for sure. But I know he's a little bit lower on the scale, I would say. And Scarlett Johansson, I'd give her a solid 5.5. She's very attractive.
Yeah, I didn't ask about Scarlett, but thank you for telling us.
But
Isaac.
I'm just giving the comparison, like it's kind of like when you say, like, in everyday life, and you say you married up, like, I would say that my wife is an attractive 10 out of 10, but my wife, but obviously most people would think their wives, I would hope anyways, that think their wives are attractive. But he married up. That's what I would say in terms of attractiveness.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to give Colin Jost a 4.75 out of 6. I think he's much better than you're giving him credit for. He's slender, he's tall, great haircut. He's got charm, but he's not too boisterous. I will say, maybe I'm a member of the Colin Jost defending fan club. I'm certainly not going to rate Scarlett Johansson. I think a million other people are going to do that for me. But Colin Jost does not deserve this level of frustration.
This was purely an attractiveness rating, by the way. Like if we were going personality wise, he would be bumped up on that because I do think he's a funny guy.
Isaac, I'm not correcting anything you said. We have it all on tape already.
Yeah, right. It's there. It's there. It's permanent. It's out in the ether.
Yeah, this is the only podcast that is going to give you a firm rating on Colin Jost. This is it. You're not going to ever listen to another podcast that's doing this.
You're probably right.
This is the only one.
You're probably right.
Consider yourself lucky.
We should search out there for another podcast that actually has rated Colin Jost.
Probably right. I know I'm right. What are you talking about? This film's cast also includes 2 Oscar winners, William Hurt and Rachel Weisz, and 2 Oscar nominees, Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh. By coincidence, both Johansson and Pugh competed together in the 2020 for many Best Supporting Actress awards, including the Academy Award and BAFTA Award for their roles in Jojo Rabbit and Little Women. I know Jarrett really raves about Jojo Rabbit, but this is the 24th film. I think I already said that.
I totally thought you were going to say he was raving about Little Women, and I was like, wow, okay. All right, I didn't expect that.
I don't know what got into you tonight, Isaac, but you are spicy, my friend, and I am all about it. I like it. I like what we're talking
I'm
about
saving
here.
all this pent-up energy from not being on the Infinity Bros podcast, and it's all coming right into this episode right now.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt. This was directed by Kate Shortland, written by Eric Pearson, Jack Schaefer, and Ned Benson. Many will know Jack Schaefer because she was part of the writing team of WandaVision.
Ooh.
Yeah. There it is. I didn't say anything. I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
I'm not saying anything.
Good.
We have received feedback that I am negative about WandaVision too much. The cast is Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, Florence Pugh as Lena Belova, Rachel Weisz as Melina, David Harbour as Alexei, Ray Winstone, as Draco, Ever Anderson as young Natasha, Violet McGraw as young Elena, O.T. Fagmany as Mason, William Hurt as Secretary Ross, Olga Kurylenko as Antonia, and Ryan Kiera Armstrong as young Antonia, as well as a slew of others. Nobody of, I think, crazy value. We'll talk about the post-credit scene and who's in that on the back end of the spoiler, just in case somebody snuck in and wanted to hear these thoughts. But we are going to go ahead and rate things. We talked about our rating system earlier as we talked about Colin Jost, and Isaac just absolutely obliterated his attractiveness. We want to make sure that you're familiar with our rating system, so we're going to go ahead and put that bumper right here.
Here on the Infinity Bros podcast, everything is ranked from a 0 to 6 point scale. 0 meaning horrible, and 6 meaning absolutely excellent. If all of the Infinity Bros rank something a 6, it gets an infinity step.
And people, if you haven't seen Black Widow yet, stop what you're doing, get on Disney Plus, head to your local theater, go see it. If you're vaccinated and taking COVID precautions, go do that. This is your spoiler warning.
This is
Prepare yourself.
an Infinity Bros
Prepare yourself.
spoiler warning.
All right, Isaac, let's talk about Black Widow and this movie. I want to hear your rating and your thoughts of this. And if you could briefly on the front end before getting into your rating, articulate your expectations with this movie, because before you talk, obviously, I think it needs to be said, this movie has such a unique battle to climb, as it was essentially paused for 2 years. This movie absolutely is a 2019 movie, and in some respects, you can actually tell it's a 2019 movie. We'll talk about that. But how did you feel about this movie, and what was your rating of it? And give just broad strokes review on this.
Yeah. So coming into this, I think even prior to everything happening with COVID and it being pushed back nearly 2 years, I think it's been. And I think my expectations of this movie were slightly lowered in the sense of this movie should have come out a long time ago. Black Widow has been a base character in the MCU for such a long time that I think we were missing out on an origin movie, honestly. So it was high time that she got her own movie. I just think it was a little too late, and because, obviously, spoilers if you haven't watched Endgame. I don't know why you'd be listening to this podcast if you haven't watched Endgame, but she dies, and it's a little strange that this movie is coming out after she is not a character in the MCU anymore. So my hype level was a little bit lowered, and along with some previews that we had received, just short reviews like on Twitter and stuff like that, it sounded like most people were very, very positive. There were a couple people that had some, kind of like the movie was just kind of meh, blah, 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 all that stuff. I had my expectations lowered a little bit. I would say on a scale of 0 to 6, my hype was probably at like a 4.5 or a 5 or something like that. Not like super crazy high. This movie exceeded my expectations by far. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It was really like just down to earth and heartfelt, honestly. And I wasn't really expecting that. I was expecting a cool action spy movie, some really cool, awesome female-led roles, which we got, but there was also some really heartwarming, emotional parts that I just kind of took me off guard when I was watching this movie. So, broad strokes, great movie. I'd give this movie a total, probably a 5 out of 6. Really, really great MCU movie. It's probably, I'd say, in the middle, maybe, of my, if I was ranking the MCU movies, is probably around the middle, maybe like anywhere from 10 to 15, somewhere in there, of my MCU ranking. Really great movie. I think it does great as a standalone too, which is awesome, but it also fills some gaps that we were kind of wondering about. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Max, what were your kind of broad strokes overall thoughts of Black Widow?
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of stuff you say, and I'm also going to call out a lot of feedback that I think the general public has said. I'll start with the general public. So I've heard from a couple big reviewers. So for those that don't know, I really enjoy listening to movie reviews. It's part of the reason I like doing this podcast. And I heard a lot of reviews prior to this, and reviewers I trusted, by the way, that had early access to it. Also, total side note, our guy, J-Buck, got to watch this like a week ahead of time too. So that was pretty cool to see somebody in our realm. I mean, he's not really in our realm. He just swings by once in a while and says hi.
Us, so it's
he's
nice
like a special guest star in a movie. He like swings by for 5 minutes and then gets his paycheck and then leaves. Yeah, I was really impressed with this, Isaac. I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 6. I was at times floored is what I would use, is the word I'd use. To say my expectations were low of this would be an understatement. I really, really was expecting this to be a bounce partly because of some of the reviews I was hearing, and because I did feel like the 2-year gap was going to be a problem, and the emotional stakes of the story and how it handles, in particular, Natasha's death and the leverage of the family. How was that going to really work for me as an audience member? I really was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I was really worried about Taskmaster. Taskmaster worked for me. It worked. The decision worked for me. I know a lot of sweaty Marvel fanboys and fangirls are very upset with how this goes. And I have some theories as to how they could kind of keep that character going, actually. But I thought it worked out really well. And the best part about Taskmaster, and we've already talked about spoilers, and we could talk more about this at detail. This was a 10-year setup. This was set up in Avengers when Loki looks at her dead in the eyes and says Dracov's daughter. I mean, at the time of seeing Black Widow, that did not click to me until I learned from I believe it was a TikTok I saw, that, this was dating back to Loki saying it. Completely changes, in my opinion, the perspective on that. And to say that that wasn't earned would be a critical error. I think this movie was dynamite. I think the opening credits were some of the most emotional minutes of MCU I've seen in a long time, with the rendition of It Smells Like Teen Spirit. I was tearing up in a movie theater 5 minutes into the movie. I really think I've also heard that Florence Pugh did better than Scarlett Johansson. Firmly disagree. I think Scarlett Johansson absolutely carries this one. I think Florence Pugh didn't do as well as people are saying she did. I think she did fine, but I don't think she was the main centerpiece of this. I think this was absolutely Scarlett Johansson's show. I think Florence Pugh was great, and I think David Harbour was great too. I think they all were there to support her, and it felt like that. So 5.5 out of 6. I think this action was nonstop and fantastic. I can tell action scenes are very good when I out loud audibly go, "Oh my gosh." And I did that about 3 times. Additionally, I felt like the character development worked for me. Where this movie will receive flack, in my opinion, is not fair flack, and that is the fact that people are going to say this should have come out in 2000 and blah, or this should have come out at this time. That's not fair feedback to me. This is an MCU movie that happened to come out in 2021. I think it was fine for what it was. In fact, I think it enhances my experience of the first Avengers, Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. I think it also enhances Ultron a little bit, but I also think some people don't really like that. I think especially with the vest for Natasha in Infinity War, that's a really emotional scene now.
Man.
When
That's
she
awesome.
enters. You could tell that was their setup, right? Like you could tell they were setting some of that stuff up, and I really liked that. So this one did a great job connecting things. We'll talk about other stuff it connected. The action was dynamite, and most importantly, Black Widow finally got her moment. Was it a little too late, Isaac? You talked about this. Let's veer off real quick. Do you think that Marvel did poorly in when they released this film?
Yes. I mentioned it earlier. I mean, she was due a long time ago. I think.
What year?
That's a great question.
Like, do you think it's like, because 2010 is when Avengers came out, right? So what year would you say she deserved to have her moment?
I would say it should have happened somewhere in between Avengers, the first Avengers, and Infinity War, probably. And it would have been great if it came out, honestly, if it came out in chronological order, like where this movie is set, that would have been perfect for me, obviously, because like that way we kind of led into, I believe it was leading into Infinity War. This is set after Civil War. I thought that would have been perfect, because then she gets her payoff, or however you want to call it, before Endgame, where she is this pivotal character who literally lays down her life to, save the world. So I think that would have been perfect. If it came earlier, that would have been great too, but that would have been kind of the sweet spot, I think. I think this is just a product of, I mean, I've heard a lot of rumblings about how this was all Ike Perlmutter's, problem. He didn't want Black Widow to be a focal point in the MCU, and that's why she hadn't gotten her solo movie. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyways.
I would, to interject on that, I think this is on Kevin Feige.
And it's possible. It's possible that.
And I'm being
be.
a little more. Honestly, I've been a little more critical of Kevin Feige, I think, this last year.
You sure have.
I really have. I really think that Kevin Feige dropped the ball on this. If he wanted it, he could have had it after.
Absolutely, yeah. I read an article that was saying this, and it was like, man, they're really giving Perlmutter a lot of credit for how things have been going in the MCU, and I think Feige really has been the guy since basically
Age of Ultron.
Yeah, you could say around then, and
because that's when things started to explode. Because that's when it was Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Ant-Man, and eventually Captain Marvel. Like these are when these really crazy, air quotes crazy at the time, we were like, they're gonna make an Ant-Man movie.
Sure, that's when they started expanding past the household names, the household characters that everybody knows. Like that's when they went into those characters, and that's, I mean, they've been doing amazing with those characters. But man, I think it hurt, and I say hurt, but really it doesn't hurt them very much, because this movie has done great in the box office so far, and probably will end up doing really well. Plus, the Disney Plus numbers have been astronomical. So, has it hurt them? Hurt them? No, not really. But I think this would have been way more earned, and in my eyes, way better if this had come out, when it was supposed to come out, way back when chronologically, ideally, but like even before that, I think ScarJo earned her solo film prior to that too. So
yeah, Kevin Feige has a lot of apologies to make to Scarlett Johansson, right? Like, I mean, he has an apology to make to her for probably how Joss Whedon was writing her character in Avengers and Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
In particular with Age of Ultron, her character is written as a damsel in distress when her character is literally not a damsel in distress. That's the whole point of her character.
And
you
this
have her in
this
Avengers.
movie just blew that out of the park. Like this.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Like that's the problem with this movie is we know what happens in the future on it. So you have to develop her into a spot where you have to hand off the baton of where she has to go.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
It felt to me like this was a continuation in terms of story of where she ended up in Endgame. Now, I didn't mind that, and I was craving that from the character, so I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
But from a did they do it right? No, they did not do it right.
Right.
Scarlett Johansson deserved better than, for lack of a better way of saying it, sexy poses and, damsel in distress moments.
Yeah.
And then in Civil War, she kind of started to get back in that rhythm of being her own person again. And then obviously we saw Infinity War and Endgame, her resolution in being this hero and the stakes she made. I really appreciated that. But I agree, Isaac. I think this was long overdue. And I blame no one but Kevin Feige. And he can talk in one mouth and blame our promoter all he wants. However, he needs to come to grips with the fact that she was always available. It could have easily been done after Age of Ultron. It would not have been a difficult thing. Where they messed up was when they put her with Hulk. That was when this all messed up.
It was such a weird thing, and then it just went nowhere, and it just, that was.
Yeah, it's one of those weird parts of the MCU between anything with the Hulk really is weird, right? Like
Yeah, true.
even with William Hurt, it's kind of weird with his character as General Ross. I don't know. There's just something weird about that Incredible Hulk movie. Iron Man 2, as much as people crap on that movie, it still gets referenced a lot. It still gets referenced a ton in all these other movies.
That's like the first. I feel like Iron Man 2 is the first glue movie of the MCU. Like that movie, like fills in some cracks that like hadn't even been developed yet at the time. But you look back on it and you're like, oh wow, this actually does like matter in the terms of the MCU.
Well, and it's going to matter for what they're doing with Armor Wars, right?
Right, exactly.
Let's talk about this movie itself, Isaac, and we'll talk about some of the other big parts too as we go. But I want to talk about some of these actors and characters. Let's start with Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff. I talked about this in my review. This is by far my favorite rendition of Natasha Romanoff in any of the Marvel movies, and that might be a crazy take, I think, to some people. But I really, really love what Scarlett Johansson did here. While I disagreed with the timing of this movie, Isaac, and we've just talked about that, man, I felt like she gave it all to this character. I felt like Jack Schaefer, this is a completely different look from her and Ned Benson, in my opinion, than Scarlet Witch. And with Scarlet Witch, I felt like the grief storyline, going brief people, the grief storyline did not feel fully fledged out in that last episode. This felt fleshed out to me. And this felt like it was sharing a story that was going to continue non-verbally into Infinity War and Endgame. And with subtle things like the vest, I really, really liked the vest. I don't know why I liked the vest. It kind of sounds stupid when I talk about it out loud.
No. I'm with you. I thought that was hilarious. I thought the vest was great. So I'm on your side.
Yeah, I don't know why I liked it so much. It was charming. It was very charming. And that relationship with her and Yelena was totally earned.
Absolutely.
It was earned in the opening credits. I really liked that. I heard a lot of feedback about like Scarlett Johansson being outdone by Florence Pugh. Again, I don't see it. I don't see it in this. I felt like Natasha was center stage in this in everything she did. And I felt like all the key decisions, all the key emotional beats, all the key twists started and ended with her. Scarlett Johansson's 6 out of 6 performance in this movie. I thought she was absolutely dynamite, and I could not be more thrilled for her as an actress for what she's given to the MCU after Endgame, which was ridiculous that they killed her in Endgame anyway.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, like getting this movie when we did, and just with the whole backstory of her already being dead in the MCU, like this is for what it is, was the perfect like cap to Scarlett Johansson's like career in the MCU. Like it was a fantastic movie. She did great. You're absolutely right. I wouldn't say Florence Pugh like stole the show or anything like that. I would say she and David Harbour both shown like in their own right, but I agree with you. I don't think they necessarily like stole the show from Scarlett Johansson.
I heard that from every major reviewer. Every major reviewer was like, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, but Scarlett Johansson takes the side. And I was like, I watched the movie and I walked out and I looked at Sarah and said, what movie were those people watching? I was like, this is not the movie that I watched. It was totally her show.
Here's where I guess I don't necessarily agree with them, but I understand why they're saying that. Those characters were really greatly placed and written, and they were amazing complements to the story. And I get why they would say those things. I don't necessarily agree that they were better necessarily than Scarlett Johansson, but they were both my favorite parts of the movie. It was David Harbour and Florence Pugh. Does that diminish Scarlett Johansson's performance? Absolutely not. Like, she was fantastic in this movie. But I love, like, David Harbour has been one of my favorite actors since Stranger Things. And I thought his performance was amazing in this movie. I thought he was hilarious. And we'll talk about Red Guardian a little bit later. But, man, I totally agree with you, though. Scarlett Johansson was fantastic. She did this movie was a perfect, like, send-off, if you will, to her character.
This is as good of a send-off as Robert Downey Jr. had for Endgame.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, this was her moment. This was totally her moment to take a bow, to own the show. And it felt to me as somebody who has journeyed with this character since she was essentially, and I will call a spade here, she was a sex icon.
Oh yeah,
in her initial
absolutely.
start.
She came into the MCU as a sexualized character. That's what, like, her role was in Iron Man 2.
Totally. And even at times in this movie where you see Yelena Belova's outfit is kind of wrinkly and not skin tight, and then Natasha Romanoff just has the skin tight white catsuit, and you're just like, oh my gosh, Marvel, come on.
Well, and this, I don't know, I didn't notice that as much, minus there was two blatant butt shots at the beginning of the movie, and that was like, okay, like, you didn't need to.
Classic Joss Whedon.
Yeah, classic Joss Whedon. But other than that, like, I didn't really, like, that was refreshing about this movie, was that, like, she was not a sexualized character in this movie at all.
Kate Shortland as a director went out of her way to make sure that didn't happen.
Exactly. And that's why, I don't know, I thought, again, this was the best way you could have handled this character in this situation, honestly. Like, yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer how Marvel handled things, but in this situation, this is about as good as they could have gotten, honestly. So
I just hope they can learn from it. And it's unfortunate that she has to be the sacrificial character, but ironically, they could get it right the second time with Black Widow. So let's talk about with Florence Pugh here as Yelena Belova. Everyone loves her in this movie. I loved her in this movie. You loved her in this movie. I'm giving her a 6 out of 6. Would you echo that?
Absolutely, 6 out of 6. Yeah, she was fantastic.
I'm fairly confident I could say that this is an Infinity Snap in regards to her portrayal. Simply for a couple reasons. One, it's clear why they chose Florence Pugh for this role. Again, I stand by this. Scarlett Johansson did better in this movie. I will fight that battle. However, I see what people are saying with how well Florence Pugh did. And, like, I heard one piece of feedback where they were like, the scene where David Harbour's character Alexi is asking her if she's on her period, and she's like, I'm not on my period, you dipshit. They took this off of me, right? Like,
yeah.
I heard one reviewer go, "Oh, that was a scene that needed to be serious, and they made it funny." And I was like, "No.
No way, that was a perfect scene. Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, that was, to me, that was a scene we've heard over and over be serious. We heard that all in Age of Ultron. We knew that. We needed that levity in that moment. And I thought Florence Pugh portrayed that in a way that was, in some senses, talking about how some women deal with men. How some men will to go, "Oh, you're mad because you're on your period." And they're like, "No, I'm not on my period. You're just literally a jerk." And this is me articulating that. I obviously I do not understand the idea of what it's like to be a woman, but I felt like that was a good way of portraying that in that moment. And from mocking Natasha's poses to commentary on the food they eat along the way, and just how she displays such emotion on her face while also having comedic beats in a very serious spy character. Couldn't be more thrilled that she's continuing this.
Right. Honestly, and this was like, this was the perfect way to introduce a character in a movie that was not her own origin movie. Like her origin was like perfectly laid out in this movie, and it didn't detract from Black Widow or Scarlett Johansson's storyline. Like that was like the perfect way that you could do that, and it just worked out so well. I'm totally in on Florence Pugh and in her future in the MCU. Like, I mean, we're gonna talk about it later, but the post-credit
She's gonna
scene,
be. I mean, she's coming back in Hawkeye, right? Like, I mean, she's coming back very quickly, and that here's where I will say this movie plays well for Florence Pugh. This is gonna be huge for her. This is for her as an actress.
Absolutely.
She could not be more thrilled about all this.
Absolutely.
She has to be pumped about this because this just came out in July, and Hawkeye will be out here in 2 months. I mean, that girl is about to have her life completely changed. I know she's a famous actress and has other things she does, but it's different when you're a Marvel character, I think. I think people are constantly asking you questions. David Harbour as Alexei, you talked on Red Guardian. Is there a better dad bod in the MCU than David Harbour?
David Harbour was the perfect casting for this role, honestly. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to like think of who could have played him as well or better, and there's nobody. I can't think of a single actor that could have played Red Guardian as well or better than David Harbour did. He did such a fantastic job just being just an idiot, like just hilarious. And one of my favorite parts about David Harbour at the beginning of the movie was his like this weird like competition that he's got going on in his head about him and Captain America. Like the first thing that he says to Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson when they land, he's like, "Have you talked to Captain America about me?" Basically. And Scarlett Johansson's like, "What? Are you kidding me? No, we haven't seen each other for 20 years. And this is the first thing you tell me." No, absolutely not. That was fantastic.
Do you think that he actually fought Isaiah Bradley in the 80s?
Oh my gosh. That would be amazing.
I think he did. I think he did. I think he fought Isaiah Bradley. I think he's not lying.
I think he's full of it. I think he just was like that scene when he is in the prison, he's telling all those stories. I mean, the big guy that comes up to him at the end asks him the question of like, when did you fight him? And he like just brushes it off, and the guy's like, Captain America was still in the ice at that point. And
no, but Isaac, I'm talking Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, but I think he, as Red Guardian, probably, I would guess that he probably had nothing to do with Captain America or anything. He just was doing stuff in Russia at that time.
I don't know. It would be such a sweet, awesome scene to see Carl Lumbly fight David Harbour.
Oh my
gosh. Give it to me.
I'm down. I'm down.
I'm all in on that, dude.
Let's hear it.
I am all in on that. And here's where I've got to just credit Marvel here. These Marvels, as sometimes bumpy as these Disney Plus shows have been, the fact that it's making my experience watching this movie that much more fun with the post-credit scene, with what we're talking about now, with WandaVision's arc and how the writer was part of it, and obviously all the crap that's happening in Loki right now, I cannot be more thrilled with the future of how they're doing this story. It still continues to work, and the fact that you and I can have the argument about whether Alexei was lying or not, 2 years ago, people would have just assumed he was lying. But now, because of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we don't know. He could have been fighting Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's a real argument.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Melina. We haven't really talked on her. Rachel Weisz is a very decorated actress, and I thought she was good. I thought she was the weakest character of the four. She didn't get much screen time. I'll give her a 4.5, 4 out of 6. I think she was fine as an actress. She obviously plays this very, very intelligent Melina behind the scenes. It looked like in the opening scenes of this movie, they wanted to kind of lean into her being the mother figure more. It just didn't pan out for me too much. I just didn't see that connection that they were trying to sell me on, as Natasha's like, "Oh, I kept my heart because of you." I wasn't catching that. I was catching more of Scarlett and Yelena's relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. But there was kind of a weird thing because you're right. They set her up kind of to be that mother figure, and then they we went into the family meeting scene, right? And basically you think that in the first, 5 or 10 minutes of when she alerts Dreykov, or the Red Room, you think that she has turned, her back on the rest of the family. She's turning them in, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And that almost worked for me really well. And then you find out that she actually had been working with Scarlett Johansson the whole time. And that like, there were some cool parts to that, as in like the whole family aspect of all of them. That it was cool how they like started getting closer together again, even though, they weren't even a real family. But at the same time, it kind of almost diminished her character in a way. Like, I thought she was actually like really cool before, because she was like, hey, stone cold, like, I'm calling, the Red Room on you guys. But then she just flipped and was like, oh, okay, actually I'm your best friend now.
I agree. It would have been way cooler if they would have found a way to escape.
I don't know.
And let her be a bad guy still. I agree.
And I do like a lot of the parts with her in it after that. But it just, I don't know. It felt like they didn't really know what direction they wanted that character to go. And it's because they probably don't have a future for her in the MCU, right? It's like she's just a byproduct character of this movie. So
yeah, how do you continue that story? You can't.
Right.
And this honestly felt like David Harbour's character was the dad, and then she was the stepmom. That's how this felt to me.
Yeah.
And he was the more pivotal cornerstone, and she just is kind of like on the side. It kind of stinks for Rachel Weisz, because she's, again, as I said, she's a very good actress, and I think she just didn't get a good role here. I felt.
Right.
Very weak
I don't
spot
think that was
for
her fault necessarily. It's just
that's the writing.
Mm-hmm. How it
I bet
out.
it was Jack Schaefer. It wasn't Eric Pearson or Nick Benson. It was probably Jack Schaefer. Ray Winstone is Dreykov, and then obviously we get the big reveal that Antonia is Taskmaster. I talked about this in my review. I was going to hear your thoughts. Did this work for you, that Taskmaster was Dreykov's daughter?
Yes. I thought a lot about it, and I wouldn't say I'm like a huge Taskmaster fan. I really enjoy him as a character. I say him referring to the comics Taskmaster character. So I don't know. I felt like they did a really great job of applying the Taskmaster concepts to this story. But as a comic book fan, selfishly, I would have liked to see a bigger backstory, I guess, to the Taskmaster character. But I think it worked very well in this movie. So I'm not mad about how anything went down. I thought it was actually, I worked great for this film. And as long as she has a future as Taskmaster in the MCU, I think I'm like 100% okay with it, because I think Taskmaster is too cool of a character to just have a one-off and they're done, and so that's my fear, is that will happen. I really hope that's not the case. I really hope there's more in store for the character, but at the same time, that was kind of my fear when, and it was like, I wouldn't say it was pretty. Max, what did you think? Do you think it was pretty predictable that it was his daughter that was going to be Taskmaster? I thought it was.
Yes.
Eventually,
yes.
I pretty much knew that it was going to be her. Before they took off her helmet, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, and it was still a cool reveal. Nothing really against that or anything, but like, they were building up this character, and it had to be somebody important, and that was really the only like cog that fit. So it was cool. I thought it worked with the story, the Taskmaster, and nothing against, like, I like the outfit. I like the fighting style, like mimicking the fighting styles and stuff like that. Everything about the character was really cool. I wish they would have, I don't know what I wish they would have done, because if to change it to be a little bit more, I hate to be that guy that's like, oh, I wish it was more comic accurate. Blah, 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 blah. I hate to pull a Zane and be like, well, actually, but how does my Zane impression there?
So cute.
We're rating
really cute.
Oh, cute. Okay, all right.
2 out of 6, but cute.
2 out of 6. Okay, but I don't know. I just felt like, as a comic book fan and as a Taskmaster fan, I felt like a little bit more wanting, but they would have had to just scrap the whole Taskmaster idea if they did anything different. So I think it's fine. I like what they did with it. Taskmaster was a sweet villain, honestly. If they would have done everything about that and just not called it Taskmaster, that would have been okay with me too, honestly. Like the character itself was cool enough that you didn't need to add that, but it was still a cool connection to the comics as well. So honestly, good with it.
I think that this is all just for this story. I think we will see this character retire this moniker. I think we're going to see somebody steal this suit. This was all technology.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
This Taskmaster suit was technology. This totally is coming back down the line. I think we could see a Skrull have this maybe. I think we could see a character like the Punisher, for example, get a hold of this. That would be a cool little kind of shift in that character. I think there's villains like Justin Hammer who could come down the line and take that technology and make it better. I think there's opportunities here in the MCU. Or maybe even the original Taskmaster could find it, and he could come along the files of the Black Widow Red Room files, and he finds out about this, and he finds out, this guy was using it on his daughter to process some stuff like an idiot, versus it's like the Ultron line. Like you have this shield and you're using it for a Frisbee versus, other things. I think that's how this character, I think we're going to see Taskmaster again.
Okay.
As a different
I
person.
actually really like that direction you're running because, gosh, I'm blanking on her name now. Dreykov's daughter. I don't remember what her name was, but Antonia. She probably doesn't want to be associated with this Taskmaster thing at this point anyways, because she was mind controlled to do it, right? So yeah, get rid of that. She can go do her own thing and potentially still be a character in the MCU if they wanted her to be. Probably won't be, but
well, another person that could take that on if they didn't want to do Red Hulk would be William Hurt in his Secretary Ross character, right? Like, I mean, there's opportunities here to put this character and put somebody else in this character. And so in regards to Antonia, did I see it coming? Yeah. Do I care? No, because again, this was a 10-year setup.
Right. Yeah. No, and it works so well with the story that I wasn't bummed by the fact that I saw it.
And this is about this movie is about Natasha Romanoff confronting her past. If you liked The Winter Soldier and you liked the Bucky arc, guess what? You have to like this arc too. It's essentially the same arc.
Yeah.
It's a person from your past confronting you as the villain and you having to come to terms with that. Now, obviously, the way they end are a little different. One's a little more dramatic than the other. One they both fall off of
they fall out of the sky,
machines.
Right? Yeah.
But the point I'm making is it's more similar, I think, to Winter Soldier than people are letting on. So there's a ton of people, I think, around the internet who are like, "Oh, I thought the Winter Soldier's the best movie ever." It's like, "Oh, I don't like Black Widow." It's like, I don't think you get to say that because some of these beats are pretty much the same beat. Mm-hmm. Now that's formulaic.
Here's something that they differed with that I thought was good. So Winter Soldier, you get this global feeling, right? Like that. I mean, this is happening all over the world. Like everybody's watching this happen. What I loved about Black Widow was that it was like so like grounded and like nobody knows this is happening. Nobody knows the Red Room exists. Like it was like a spy thriller type of feel, but it still felt big, in that sense. But it was like nobody on Earth knows this is happening right now. Whereas in Winter Soldier, I was like, it seems like everybody was watching it on the news or on the screen. So I really love that about this movie, that it was like under the radar in the MCU, but still like felt really big. That was one of my favorite like feelings about Black Widow.
Yeah, I agree. And I liked the Red Room. I liked the reveal that it was in the sky.
Yeah.
I liked that too. I think that was cool. That was surprising. There were just a lot of beats that I liked. I certainly think that General Ross is coming back as Red Hulk, right? This movie kind of confirmed that, right? Now, like, I mean, he's super sick. He's got his second heart surgery. This totally feels like a setup for Thunderbolts now, right?
Yeah, I definitely, that has to be where they're going with this. And Valentina, I think is the character's name that's rounding up everybody. U.S. agent
Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yes, there you go.
And once
The
again,
mouthful.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus is back to
Louis-Dreyfus.
portray the character.
That throws me off every time I see her on
I
screen.
know you guys have messed that up so many times.
Yeah.
Elaine herself is back.
Elaine is back.
Elaine herself is bad dancing
Oh my gosh.
into our post-credit scenes. Did you like the post-credit scene, Isaac?
Yeah, honestly, it was a little shocking because they obviously fast forward to probably present day to where Natasha is dead and they're at her gravesite. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, my heart, I pulled a little heartstring there. But then just the fact that Florence Pugh or Yelena is involved in whatever's going on and has a future in the MCU is enough to get me really excited about that post-credit scene. Did anything really cool happen? Not necessarily. I mean, I guess they did, reveal that she's going to be hunting down Hawkeye in probably the series Hawkeye. But that, I don't know. The rest of it was kind of like, okay, cool. But just the fact that she has a future in the MCU was really exciting about that post-credit scene.
Were you thinking that she was going to come back, Natasha, in that scene?
Natasha? No, I didn't think so. I mean, unfortunately, I think Marvel is done with Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow.
I think it's the other way around. I think she's done with them.
Oh, that too. I mean, yeah, I'm fine with going with that narrative. But yeah, I think she's.
I'm just
not
saying.
coming back.
I think if she wanted to stay, I think they would keep her. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. Unfortunately, I think her character is really awesome. I think she has played her part in their eyes, and I don't think we'll see her again. And I think Marvel is replacing her with Yelena, and it'll be cool to see her in the MCU as well. But it would be cool to see both of them together. So, kind of a bummer that I think that's the way it's going to go. But you know what?
I really, really think, Isaac, down the line, they got like some multiverse stuff planned, and I think it's no holds bar at that point, right? Like, I mean, all this
they just
stuff
get everybody
is on
to
the
come
table.
back, and
I think so. I really do. I think we're going to see everybody back one more time.
I mean, at this point, it's not impossible for sure. I mean, like Feige holds the power.
Well, and take a couple years off, right? Take a couple years. Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr. Take 5 to 6 years off. Let us build this world. You guys, I think Scarlett Johansson is a person that would go get other jobs. But with all due respect to Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., they haven't really done anything since Knives Out.
Yeah, right.
So I think Scarlett Johansson could do stuff, but I think let them have some breathing room. Let them not have Marvel telling them what to do every year. Give them 5-6 years. I think there'll be an itch there. And I think you could just approach them and go, look, we want to do this. And
I mean, yeah, I could see them coming back, but yeah, just generally, I think they're just moving on and moving in the Young Avengers direction, and Yelena will be the new Black Widow.
Well, cool. Well, that is your review of Black Widow. Isaac, anything that you want to share about this movie that we didn't talk about or that we missed?
Let's see. I mean, I already talked about how I thought David Harbour was fantastic as Red Guardian, but every scene that he was in just brought me joy. Like the dad bod feel, like the he's still kind of like in the mindset of his glory days. Like I thought this was a perfect part in this movie, and I know that's probably a one-off as well. We're probably not going to see him again unless it's like a cameo or something like that. But man, I really loved his character, and I would love to see him back again in some capacity. I don't know how or even why, but it would be really awesome to see more of the Red Guardian. Maybe a Captain America Red Guardian showdown. That would be sick.
I will say one thing I forgot to say too is I wish that Taskmaster would have had more of skill sets showcased.
Right, yeah. And we saw like a couple, but man, it would be cool to see a lot more.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of them in trailers, right? Like, I think Marvel really burned
Dude,
all the big stuff.
That's
on
one of
trailers.
my biggest pet peeve about movies in general these days is that the trailers just end up showing so much, and you watch the movie and you're like, oh, okay, well, I saw like a lot of the plot points in that 2-minute trailer that I saw before I saw the movie. Like I'm not a fan of those trailers. I still will watch them, but
And I felt like the final jump scene where they fell from the ship was
that was supposed to be
good,
the big
but
climactic
it
scene, and we
was
saw
really quick.
almost all. Yeah, that's true as well. But we saw like 30 seconds, maybe not 30 seconds. We saw like 20 seconds of it in the trailer. Like we saw a big chunk of that scene.
Honestly,
in the trailer.
that was one of the worst scenes, and this movie was really good. And I really, really liked this movie. And I still, even when it was happening, when they're like free falling, I'm like gripping my seat like, this is my nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
This is my nightmare.
I will say there were, in terms of CGI, this was a good movie. I will say there were like two or three moments. One specifically that I thinking of is when they're on the helicopter trying to rescue Red Guardian from the prison, and ScarJo does like a backflip off of the rope and lands on the bridge. That one was like, oh, not great CGI there. But the rest of the movie was solid. The action was great, and that's really what I was expecting, was a solid action spy thriller type movie, and it's exactly what I got and more, with the family emotional stuff thrown in there too.
Family stuff was dynamite. You felt it. It was so good. We could probably have talked on that for a long time, but we want to make sure that.
And I do want to mention too, the opening credit scene with like kind of the focus on like sex trafficking and stuff. Like you mentioned that it basically brought a tear to your eye, and that it was the same for me. Like the whole running theme of the Red Room basically capturing these girls to bring them in and mind control them. Like it's just heartbreaking, and I felt that heaviness through the whole movie, honestly, until the final scene when Natasha's squaring off against Dreykov, and she can't even attack him because his pheromones are giving off a scent that is not allowing her. Even though she's not being mind controlled, she still is kind of being mind controlled in a way. Like it's just crazy, the themes that are running through that. And then she ends up downloading the whole file of every single person on his list or whatever, and going to go save those. Is just like, oh, that's a really
breaking her nose,
man. Ugh,
crazy,
fantastic. And
she's an OG Avenger.
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
What you're talking about, these themes, they only enhance that character.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
After we watched this character fight Chitauri with no superpowers in Age of Ultron, we saw her again basically fight Ultron machines by herself without powers. Then we go to Infinity War, and she's fighting these massive alien generals in a ditch with a Wakandan and a witch. And then in Endgame, we watch her sacrifice herself. Like, just the legacy of this character is enhanced because you watch her heroics, and in her backstory, how can you not root for that character?
Right.
How can you not root for the success of that character and the family around her? And I think Yelena is going to be a great addition to this universe. I cannot wait to see Hawkeye now.
Hawkeye is going to be a legit series, dude. I'm pumped for it.
I was excited for Hawkeye, but now I'm like over the moon for it. I can't wait to see this show. It's really going to be something special.
Jarrett is going to lose his mind. We better have him on every single review episode that we have.
Yeah, we will. Shang-Chi's up next too. September 9th.
That's wild, dude. Cannot
Well,
believe.
actually, no, I take that back. It's going to be Loki episode 6 this coming week. So you'll get that review at the end of the week.
Wait. When is Shang-Chi again?
Shang-Chi be September 9th.
So
then it'd be what if?
Yeah, I was going to say, what if
Yeah.
comes out in August? That's crazy, because we just found that out 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Nuts.
Yeah, so if you're listening to us for the first time, make sure you subscribe so you can check out those things. If you're still listening, we just want to say thank you for listening to us. You can check us out on theinfinitybros.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search The Infinity Bros. TikTok, Twitch. We love to Twitch, and we'd love for you to join us. Robbie, Jarrett, Isaac, They're always twitching, doing amazing things on there. So make sure you check them out for basically 3 to 5 days a week. Those guys are out there doing stuff. So if you're into any of that stuff, make sure you do it. Shoot us an email at theinfinitybros@gmail.com. Isaac, thank you for a great episode, buddy.
It's been a pleasure, my friend.
Awesome. And we love you guys, 3,000. Remember that. We will see you soon. See ya. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Infinity Bros podcast. You can find the Infinity Bros on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Infinity Bros. Feel free to send listener feedback via email at infinitybrospodcast@gmail.com.